Hello, all. Welcome. Welcome to tea. I'm glad you're all here. And I join in with everyone else, um, saying Happy Father's Day to all of you. I think this might be actually celebrated all around the world on this day, maybe on the same day, um, except in South America, which is in their June, right? Which is actually um, our June is their December or their January? Their December. Yeah. Um, that's when they have it because that's their summer. So hello to everyone and welcome. And I have to say, I really, my heart goes out to and I tip my hat to all of the fathers. I know from personal experience what a difficult and usually thankless job that it is. the So much of what is done goes completely unnoticed, um, especially by the kids. Maybe later in life, later in life, you start to get a little bit of acknowledgement um, that that you actually did something good. And as I've pointed out before to people who've lamented over not doing a good job with their kids, if you're doing a good job as a parent, you're never going to feel like you do a good job. You're never going to know that you did or did. If you think you did, then you almost certainly didn't. You just followed a bunch of rules and you were dictatorial probably. So it's the kind of thing that if it wasn't for nature intervening and kind of forcing it on us, I don't think any of us would choose. But we got to do it. It's kind of built into the system. We want to be we want to connect. We want to couple. It's the nature of things. And it's interesting. I recently learned that some interesting observation about the story of Adam and Eve. And I like to listen to various myths and, listen to both scholars and other kinds of folks who are making comments about it, but especially when they start looking at the actual words that were used, because the original words in Hebrew, which is of course what the Old Testament was written in the story of Adam and Eve, and the Greek, which is what the New Testament was written in. There's all sorts of variations on what the meaning of a particular word or phrase can be, and over time it gets reproduced, especially handwritten kind of stuff, or even written down. When it's just verbal, but later on, when there's a more solid theology going on, they'll always tend to choose a meaning of the word, or even change the meaning of the word to fit the theology. So, well, that is what they meant. Such a thing is the case in Adam and Eve. The word, when we talk about, Adam's, opening him up and they're taking a piece of his body, the rib, and out of that man, God fashioned a woman to be a helper to him, right? Which is, of course, a secondary position. I'm important and you're my helper. Now, the word that was used for the taking of the part of the body in the original Hebrew was the word Ezra, which actually doesn't mean taking a piece. It means splitting in two. When you see it that way, there's a sense of the equality there that is missing later on because of the patriarchal system in which it got implemented and appeared. That it was, and it actually corresponds to many creation stories about how all creation came into existence, where some god literally split themselves in two and created masculine and feminine, the male and the female. And from them, all creation had sprung. So that sense of equality is inherent in that word, whereas it's missing in the way, in fact, I guess it's 60 some times that word is used in the Old Testament, always referring to a dividing into two. And even when you look at it through the lens of non-duality, you see that this is the essence, the oneness, the indescribable, irreducible oneness. In order for there to be creation, must divide into the many. And of course, that initial split in human beings is the masculine and the feminine, which the original, the word for what became man and associated with the gender was far more generic. In some instances, it actually even means mind. It means image. God made man in his image and likeness. Breathed into the earth the breath of life. There's no sense of gender there. But now, in the sense, in the other thing, the word that happened, the word helper, and I don't remember exactly what the original Hebrew word was, but the word helper, which is actually a different word, the word they used was actually rescuer. God felt sorry for Adam, and he sent a rescuer. Now, that's a very different relationship between the genders than the helper is. And I personally, yeah. Sometimes, oftentimes the masculine is rescued by the feminine, vice versa as well. But we normally think of man as the rescuer. Look at all the movies and other such nonsense. But the but to see that it cuts both ways. It's an even split, right? It isn't a lopsided split, and the relationship is one of actually of equality, but fulfilling very different spheres. The Native Americans, they didn't see animals as lesser beings. They showed them as beings with different powers than we have. And in the African, well, there's all sorts of different tribes of African, but in many there was the sense of the hierarchy was not human beings and everything else underneath. We actually were down there at 4. The top was the elephant, was regarded as the tippy top. The next was the lion. The next was the anaconda, and then came us, which of course makes perfect sense in a jungle setting. Those other 3 are far more suited to this whole thing than we are. And so you begin to see that everything is just a manifestation of one thing in a different form. The consciousness of your cat and the conscious and you is no different. There's exactly the same sense of just presence and being that is experiencing the world through a particular lens. So what you call your consciousness, if it had a cat body, would experience the cat world. Put the same consciousness in a dog body, it experiences the dog world. Put it in a fruit fly, it's a fruit fly world. Put it in a bee, it's a bee world. Put it in a human body, it's a human world. The only real difference is the capacity of the human to recognize it. Within the human, there is the capacity of consciousness to ponder itself, to actually look at itself, which apparently does not seem to appear in any other critter. That consciousness seems to be confined to the particular capacity of their senses, and of course to what we would call mind. And of course, this is a very different kind of mind. This is a mind in which this is mind turning on itself, turning its attention on itself, meaning its own notions, its own ideas, its own assumptions, finding its own boundary, and thus allowing consciousness to be liberated from its confines, from any form, from any kind of containment whatsoever. Because it doesn't matter what what form is containing it. It doesn't matter through which eyes, sets of senses that it's experiencing the world. Liberation is also always possible. Because liberation, the seed of the Buddha, is in consciousness, period, in every single being. And it is the deep conviction of the Bodhisattva that all beings will, in fact, be liberated. And to that they dedicate their life. So, yeah, I'm not going to talk a lot today. Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk a lot in the beginning today. So I'm going to invite questions early. I see that there's actually a couple that have popped up. One from Karina, and it's so good to see you. So good that you're coming back to visit. And lots of people come. They come, they go away. They come, they go away. It's really lovely to see, watching people make their own way. It's part of the spiritual path. So I never make any kind of. I'm always sad. People come to me and I form a relationship as a teacher. I get kind of bonded to my students, and then when it's time for them to move off somewhere else, there's a little heart thing going on there. But it's a bittersweet kind of thing. Letting go is always bittersweet. It's an art, and it's bittersweet, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm going to head over to the questions now. For everybody, and say hello to everyone. Rosario, hello Rosario. And there's in Madrid. I loved Madrid. I've only been there once, but I really loved that city. I loved Barcelona too. Well, Madrid was far more friendly, I found. Yeah. Robbie in Romania. Jay, hello Jay. Happy Father's Day to everybody, to all the fathers. To all the halves of the piece of the puzzle. Hello, Ava, and there's Andy, also saying, everybody's saying Happy Father's Day to everybody. And there's Fernando, hello, everybody, Pride Flower Rainbow Heart, beautiful. Hi, everybody, there's Crispin, there's Ben, hello, Ben. Jennifer, Happy Father's Day, Papa, thank you for everything you do, so much love. I feel like I have so many kids. I feel like I have so many kids. It's great. There's Dale. Happy Father's Day. Polo in Poland. Father's Day is June 23rd. I don't know why it's a different date here. Don't know either. But Sally. Hello, Sally. Good to see you. And Corrine. Hi. I was just thinking that I had a question for you, and then you appeared on my live feed. Ta-da. Isn't it lovely how it all works? Yeah, Karina. This is Karina. Your name's actually showing. You must have clicked on the little link. Question. I struggle with the concept that we have no free will. If all things are appearing across the screen of awareness, then wouldn't our decisions be just the infinite being's decision? Therefore, by the very fact that our true nature is us, then there is free will? Yeah, I could see how you would get there. The only mistake you're making in that is there's a certain amount of personification in the sense infinite being, like an infinite being, like an infinite God that we have a relationship with. Being is not a person, an entity, or anything. It's inconceivable. It's just isness. It's just existence itself. The primary quality of anything, this microphone, this body, the bamboo, and the salt lamp, and the candles that are behind me, they're a collection of attributes, aren't they? The color, the texture, their progress over time, the way they grow and develop, the light that they're emitting, right, which is a constant flow of light that's being picked up. Those are all the attributes that we can obviously see. Then there's other attributes that we cannot see. So, well, they're just too small. But what's the most fundamental aspect, the most fundamental attribute of absolutely everything? The one thing all things have in concept. I just, I completely lost that word. The one thing that they all have in common. Wow, where did that one just kind of slipped off the screen? The one quality, that one attribute that absolutely everything has in common: existence, being. Without that, there's nothing. So the primary nature of all things is being. And as you can extrapolate, simply the mind-numbing complexity and variance and diversity in all of creation, you can't help but to conclude that this being is infinite in nature. So it's not a being. So free will is an idea that we have, this moment of determining a creation, right? That I'm going to do something. But if you're the infinite being, the mere impulse to do something is creation. It's already done. There's no will there happening. It is a spontaneous arising. Being plays jazz. It's not anticipating. It's not exercising a will. We look at it that way. It's just our human perspective on it. Our perception of it is that there's this, creative moment, or a decision gets made, and we see, kind of deliberation, decision is made, and then a path is walked, and we think of that as decision making, and that there's a free will there that's making it, and they could have made another decision. That's questionable, isn't it? Could they make another decision? Is it possible? But you can't let yourself fall into determinism, that there's something pushing somebody to make decisions. The mistake is believing that there is somebody there, that there is a person. The person is a projection on what in fact is simply the unfolding, the appearing of this perpetual unfoldment, this perpetual self-expression of the nature of being itself. The nature of being is to express itself in forms. But when I say express itself, the words don't do it justice, because we immediately think of some kind of infinite being as a being. There is no such thing as a being. There is only beingness, the essential quality, the essential creative power, that out of its own nature, all things arise. There's no act of will there, but its own internal consistency, its own pure harmony, which is its essential oneness, guarantees that absolutely everything that appears is congruent and pure, perfect in and of itself, and identical in essence to its source. But it's never disconnected from its source. It's not like there's a God, this infinite being, who then creates something that's separate from it. If that was the case, it wouldn't be infinite. There'd be this little place where they weren't. It's more like, a fountain shooting off dancing water, right? You turn off, you cannot have the dancing water without the fountain. The nature of the dancing water is the fountain. And if you were to shut off the source, the water would stop. But it's a constant thing, right? It's a constant coming, like the light coming from the candles or the salt lamp, right? Or the lights that are on me. It's not that you turn it on and now the room's got this light in it, right? This static thing. It's constantly coming, right? It never stops. So it looks like there's this, you're seeing a picture of me, but in fact, you're seeing an infinite number of pictures of me, right? An infinite number, because the light is a constant flow. It's never static for a moment. So all of existence is this constant eruption from the center of the being, which has no boundaries. It exists everywhere and nowhere. It's just here. That is your nature. The spiritual path is to come to see that you cannot possibly have any nature contrary to that. Therefore, your nature is that. Your nature is the infinite being. And what we call me, or even my nature, is but a manifestation of that. And the whole of that manifestation is what we call the universe. And you couldn't have you without the rest of the universe, and vice versa. So there's no you in the sense there's not something there making decisions. You are witnessing the flow of thoughts and actions and motivations that make up what appears to be a decision or a choice point. But what is it that's looking at that all flow by? It's not a person. It is the infinite being. Who's looking through your eyes right now? Who's seeing me? That which is actually cognizing me. It's not Karina. Karina is a name given to this particular flow that happens to be happening. What's witnessing the flow is the infinite being, the one infinite consciousness. How's that? Does that kind of sum it up for you all? Karina, is that satisfying you, or do I need to go into it more? Lovely. Oh, thank you so much. I don't know why I'm feeling very emotional today. I feel like I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. Jay, that's the second time I heard that in a long time. Mind turned inwards is the self. Yeah, yes. Mind turning inwards. What could possibly turn it inward other than the self? Right? And in that case, it's no longer the psychological mind, is it? It's not the flow of thoughts. It's something much more subtle that is looking beyond the flow of thoughts. And that which is looking beyond the flow of thoughts is obviously supreme, superior to the flow of thoughts. But the true identity of that is the true one mind. That is the true nature of mind. That being, same beingness I was referring to with Karina, that's the true nature of mind. It's the true nature of love. It's the true nature of all the most fundamental and significant attributes that we identify, that the soulfulness and creativity and truth, love, fundamental, essential, compassion, wisdom. They're all attributes flowing from this indescribable beingness, which is the essence of the true mind. And so mind turning towards itself is in fact the awakening of the true mind. So yeah, yeah, what you said. Hi GP, hi Sally. How is it possible to feel feelings, emotions that are not experienced in my body? I feel loneliness, but I can't feel it in my body. Well, there's probably some reactions going on in your body, but let's remember, when we're, without trying to sound too esoteric, this isn't the only, this body that have here, right, it is but one particular frequency of vibration. Right? Just like red light is one particular vibration of the whole of light, right? And then there's vibrations of light that we can't see at all. That's the visible, the 7 colors of the rainbow are the visible lights. But each one of those is nothing but light, right? Its essence is light. So when you're talking about the physical body, there's also an emotional body. They call it, there's an astral body and all these different things. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to get esoteric. I don't want to label all these things. I just want to recognize that our physical senses are only aware of this particular realm of vibration. Like our ears can't hear what dogs hear. It's not, to us, that sound doesn't exist at all, right? But to the dog, it's like everything, right? And, the same thing with their sense of smell. It's like 20,000 times more than, or more than what we can smell. So there's no smell for us, but it's a completely different world for the dog. So our particular range of senses perceive the world in this particular way through that. And so this is what appears to be the body, because we're not aware of the other dimensions of this whole thing, right? And so your feeling then, an identifiable feeling that you cannot pinpoint in the body, it means that it's just not reflected there. When I teach the chakras, I teach each one of these, of the 7 chakras, as there's the physical, which is the first chakra. The first chakra isn't in the body, it is the body. Everything physical is the vibration of consciousness at that particular level that we call the first chakra. Just like red light is the particular vibration of light, right? Perceived as red. And so the physical existence, that doesn't mean we don't have access to the rest. But because we have been so enculturated into thinking that what we perceive with our senses is all that there is, and this is where all of our systems of organization and science are based on that. This is it, right? There isn't anything beyond it. So we just assume that, well, how can I feel that when I don't feel it in my body? Well, you're feeling it somehow, aren't you? Right? So so just liberate the idea of feeling from a complete attachment to the body, and you'll find that there's a whole vast area there that's completely available to you that has nothing to do with the body. The body is simply, well, in that, other than they are both made of exactly the same substance, but that same substance appears as a human or as a cat or as a gnat. Same substance, different manifestation. And so you're just experiencing things. You could call it the emotional body. You can call it a mental body, right? Because thought is very ephemeral, right? There's all sorts of thoughts go by that we do not feel in the body. They just zoom, zoom, zoom by, right? Where are they all? They're all emerging from the same place, right? So the fact that you are feeling it and you're not feeling it in the body, but there it is. So, okay. So I have this capacity to feel things on a different dimension than the body. How do I know? Well, because I'm feeling it. So there it is. And so you just take it as it is and recognize that liberated from the body, liberated from this personal sense of self, there's a vastness of perception that opens to you. And so you can now find that in that area, there's opportunity for healing in these dimensions. In Buddhism, they refer to it as the repository or storehouse consciousness. There's a whole other level of consciousness operating completely outside of the senses. It's reflected in the experience that we call the physical senses, because they're not actually physical. They're made of consciousness. But there's an underlying dimension that can be felt because no matter how subtle it gets, you're both the perceiver and the creator of it. You just aren't aware of how you're creating it. Well, you're not aware of how you're creating it because the sense of self has been tied to a personal sense of self. And so how can I do that? Well, that I can't do it. The problem is not teaching that I how to do it. It's realizing that I is itself simply something that has arisen in the true I. Disidentify with that and recognize that the one perceiving, the ultimate witness of all this, is the same witness that's in absolutely every one of us. That's what's called Shiva being, or the Brahman self, or Buddha nature, or Christ consciousness. It is the one being, and we're simply mistaking that place, that point of cognition, the thing we call consciousness. We're mistaking it, making it personal. When we do that, we make a God or an infinite being personal, right? And it's not personal. It is the being, and you are that. Does that help, Sally, and everybody else? Oh, you continued. I didn't see that. Is there free will? I never actually went anywhere. I was just silently watching. I was going through a new layer of understanding. Yes, good, good, good. Wonderful. Thank you. Ah, fantastic, fantastic. Yes, this is, you know, you don't have to think of the awakening is a wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, the explosion, and that's, you know, and it's all over. It can happen. It may happen. Right. But in the meantime, there's this forever unfolding that's happening. And of course that's going to be there in some form throughout all eternity. We're never going to run out of creation. It's inexhaustible. The only thing that we run out is our personal identification with it. We see that this is all that, and it goes on forever. So every new layer of understanding, again, it's not personal. I'm not having a new layer of understanding. I haven't gotten a new understanding. You could look at it like that. Oh, this is a new level of understanding, a different perception of the universe appearing to the essence of the universe. The self, the ultimate self, is simply experiencing a different aspect of itself. We call that the awakening. Lovely, lovely. Ravi, some tips on handling Jehovah's Witness people. Try not to. If you see them coming, run. Don't walk the other way. I try to be polite, but I get overwhelmed. They become pushy and start to shove their Bible knowledge and innovations. Yeah. Sometimes the best thing to do is not be polite. Is just say, you know what? I have absolutely no interest in what you're saying. Please leave me alone. And walk away. Be firm. Be absolutely firm. Just do not engage them in any way. They and many others who have this strong evangelical, very narrow view of things really believe that their job is to save everybody, right? And so they really think they're doing good, right? And that this is what God wants them to do, and that they're the chosen ones. I mean, it's quite diluted, but there you go. You cannot deal with that state of mind. There's nothing open about it. There's no willingness to we both want to know about God. We both want to know more what the truth of all of this is. Let's sit down and explore it together. That's an open-hearted conversation that you can have with people. And the genuine people of all faiths are like that. They recognize that I don't understand this all. How could I? My view could obviously be warped. It could be distorted. I could have prejudices. In fact, I know I have prejudices. So I can be open to listening to different points of view, because what's most important to me is to know what the truth, to come to know what the truth actually is, to know God as he or she or it is. That is not the disposition of these groups. They are fundamentalist. They are strictly hierarchical. They are dogmatic, and to a large degree even fascist. This is the way you must conform to it, and if you don't, they'll threaten you with all sorts of punishment. Eternal punishment, by the way. And so there is no dealing with them. I don't even bother. And, you know, I'll be polite and say, no, thank you. And if they get pushy, I will get very, very stern with them. Say, I have already made my position clear. Thank you. Good day. right? If they're coming into your house or something like that, and if they come to your house and that doesn't even work, you just slam the door in their face, right? They'll feel honored. They'll feel like they're suffering for God. So let them. We do not have to be polite, right? We do not have to try to be nice to them. I know that sounds like I should be. What about compassion and love? I'm not saying hurt them. Well, you might want to. I'm not saying insult them. I'm just saying cut them off. You know, they do not have any right to intrude on you like that. They have walked way beyond the boundaries of even civility. So any kind of evangelical or fundamentalist of any kind, you can treat in this same way. Just get out of the conversation. There's absolutely nothing to gain there. And then don't let our the idea that somehow being spiritual means I've got to be really good and loving to everyone. Don't let that confuse you. That is loving, right? Love isn't always just enduring. Sometimes it's the sort of truth that just cuts it off. There's nothing I can do here. I'm out. And then don't feel bad about it. And then leave them to God, right? Leave their eventual awakening from. It's a dark pit, right? I know a lot of these people. I've met a lot of them. They're not happy. Right? They really aren't happy. There's so much unprocessed trauma and pain going on underneath that they're hanging on by a thread. Right? It's only that kind of pain that makes somebody hold on to something so tightly and do things that they would never think of doing. They would never ever think of doing, but they're kind of forced into it, doing things that no human being should do, and they think they have to. It's twisted. It's twisted. There's nothing you can do about them. So there you go. I hope that helps, Ravi. I hope that helps. Bless your heart for trying to be polite. If you don't be polite, just get away, get them out of your sight. You don't have to concede anything. Me, 23. Namaskar to you. Godwin's name. Hello to you, sir, ma'am. Feels like a sir, but I'm not sure. Jennifer. The watching of the witness is wild when you actually back out and witness the thoughts, the feelings, the body, and the environment. Although it's as if the minute I've noticed I'm witness, it's over. Here's what you do. Is there a way to stay there any longer by forgetting I'm the witness? Or does it just come and go with the awareness? You're going to find it bouncing in and out for a while. It can persist. It still happens to me, right? You just the pure witness. Oh, look at your witnessing. We just go, oh, look, I'm witnessing a thought about the witnessing. And it has a little pride in it. Oh, look at that. Or then it has a little bit of regret. Oh, I lost it. Witness that too. You can't lose it. So what is losing and gaining is the sense of self, right? And when you see that, it's an even subtler thing that you can witness. Well, look at that. There's a whole sense of self there. Remember this flow of thoughts, the attachment, the aversions, the mind attacks, as sometimes it's called. It can't attack you, right, any more than something could attack space. Right? It's attacking the image it has of you. So, and it wants to, because we've been trained this way, we tend to identify with that image. We feel that, and we think, oh, I've got to get rid of these feelings. I've got to get rid of these thoughts. No, you don't. You free yourself from the I that the mind is attacking. Oh, look, there it is. Right? This idea that, oh, I lost it because I just realized that I'm the witness. Well, of course you realize you're the witness. Of course. What? Oh yeah, I'm the witness, and that's just a thought about the witnessing, and you witness that too. It again, what you're feeling is the subtle habit of identification, being pulled into a sense. I am that. I'm something witnessing. I'm someone witnessing, and witnessing is a state I get into, and then and then I can fall out of. But the getting into and the falling out of is being witnessed, isn't it? So keep stepping backwards into the witnessing of even the witnessing of witnessing, until there's nothing there at all, and all of it is just playing on the screen. Does that help? Boy, we're very non-dual today. I'm happy about that. Although I'm happy to engage in questions of people being of people asking think more about pain and trauma and that sort of stuff. I'm happy to do that, but it's always fun when I get to just kind of go off on the on the source of all healing, the source of all well, everything that makes life, human life, wonderful. Its source. Anyway, Jennifer, it was like the movie Being John Malkovich, which is a great movie. I love that. They pop out, they fall out off the side of the highway in New Jersey. That's about as good as it gets. Corrine says, wonderful, thank you. Oh, great, Corrine. So, yeah, is there a way to stay there longer? As long as you think that you go in and out of it, there's no way to stay there. The infinite neither goes in nor comes out. It does not begin and it does not end. Keep identifying with that which is beyond even the witnessing. Anything you can do, even the witnessing of witnessing, is witnessed. I know that sounds like recursive, and it sounds kind of arcane, but just ponder it. Just keep diving more and more into the act of seeing. And if something like that pops up and it feels like you've been pulled out of it, just notice, oh, look, I've been pulled out. It seems I've been pulled out of it. Well, that which is noticing you've been pulled out of it wasn't pulled out, right? It's noticing. It's more the witnessing. So you simply say, oh, right, there it is. And you just bring your attention back into that place where you're just watching these things happen, watching everything come up, and just let the process unfold itself. Me, perfect, G. Thank you, me. Thank you very much. Good evening, GP. There's Peter in Italy. Thank you, GP. Good evening to you and everyone. Deep gratitude. Sally, yes, that really helps so much. Thank you so much, GP. You're very, very welcome. Yes, dogma and hierarchy. I'll set. LOL. We are God. We are one. True, but don't go saying that out loud many places, okay? We are one is okay. But don't be talking to me about God. For most people, God is a separate super being. God is a persona, a person, right? And the ego wants to claim that, and the ego wants to shoot on sight anybody who does claim that. So don't get caught in the middle of that crossfire. Karina, when I do the healing work using tapping, mindset, or any other modalities, I notice that my reality changes, creation changes. So there feels like there's something I need to do. Continue it. And if I were not to do these things, then nothing would ever change, even though I've had the peace and bliss that resting from infinite awareness can bring. The human illusion comes back, and there's a feeling there is work I have to do. Can you talk a little bit about this if you have the time? Oh, I've got the time. I just happen to have the time, dear. So I'll talk about that. It's a very, sorry, Jay. It's a very it's a very common experience, right? And it's more intense these days because there is such an emphasis on doing, becoming, succeeding, making things happen. It's deeply entrenched in Western culture in general, but just over the top in American culture. The self-made man, the Wild West, the noble hero who acts alone but is the only source of real righteousness. The myth of the self-made billionaire, right? Oh, we did it all our own, starting from nothing. A story that's absolutely never, ever true. It's always a myth they like to create about themselves to give themselves all the credit. We have all sorts of these modern myths about their stuff, that there's something I have to do. Now, healing, we talk about healing work, using tapping, mindset, or any of the modalities is really about bringing ourselves back to what's actually true about ourselves. And if it was just a one and done thing, I had the awakening, everything has been smooth from then on out, there'd be no need for any of these things. But as all of you have experienced, that's not the case. It isn't just that. In fact, the awakening usually opens the door to a lot of stuff we'd never seen before, which continues, by the way, right? I've had some tumultuous things come up. In the last 2 years, there's been a whole bunch of them, and even the last couple of months, there's just been some just opened up a whole new perspective on every event that's ever taken in my life, awakening me to a level of trauma I did not really realize was there. I didn't realize how deep its tentacles had gone. So this is the process that we go through, and we welcome it when that awakening takes place. And one of the things that we want to have the freedom from is what Nisargadatta referred to as the tyranny of what's next. When Mooji does his invitation, that's one of the things he says, like, no next. Right now, just let go of a next. Even the next thing, my next awakening, the next, what's this meditation going to bring to me? To try as best you can, fighting against our current of always wanting to rush into the future, to really stay present in this moment, noticing this deep habit of doership, of wanting to do. And included in that is this deep sense that if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And that is deep at the heart of the energy that drives egoic existence, drives the false sense of self. Remember, the false sense of self, there's no self there. The ego is not a thing. It is a sense of being separated from the whole, that I am this body contained here, and there's this threatening universe out there that I've got to make my way in. And so it becomes, I've got to do it. So it's not, the ego in the sense of arrogance or anything like that. It's in the sense of fear. It's in the sense that I have to do this or nothing's going to happen. But now, here's the other side of this that we have to be careful with. Spiritual understanding comes along, and we begin to realize, that there is no doer. Things are just happening. And now the ego tries to start being the not doer. I'm going to not do now. The problem isn't the doing or the not doing. It's the I. It's the I that feels it has to do or not do. That I is where you need to put your attention. And I wouldn't say that to everybody. For some, I would just tap through some things, but you're at a level where you can hear this. You're recognizing that both of those are energy flows, right? And that is neither doing nor not doing. And it's not that things don't get done or things not done. It's just there's no doer of them. So there's a sense of what's next. And you could just be with that and go, yeah, what's next? I wonder what's next. life is a constant transformation. It's impermanent. Everything is a flow. So, yep, something is coming next. And guess what? It's going to come here and meet me because I'm here. I'm the place at which it's saying next, before and after are all from right here where I am. And then you can do very practical things, right? When that feeling comes up, or you find yourself working on something. And I was a big doer all my life. I did a lot of stuff, right? I slept for 4 hours for about 25 years of my life. I only slept 4 hours a night. And that's all I needed. I mean, I was just this tireless energy going all the time, doing just, I mean, I'd work, I'd go home, I'd write music. I had so many things going on all the time. And there was this feeling, I'd finish one thing and immediately the next thing was there. So what you can do is, like, when you say, okay, that little job is done, time for a breath. Time to close my eyes and just take a couple of deep breaths. Interject something in between, right? This transcending of the sense of being the doer is not something that's going to happen in a snap. It's going to take some patience. So you go, in that moment, the whole point of tapping mindset, these other modalities, is so the sense of reality changes. So we begin to see things differently. The seeing of things differently is the awakening. That's what it is. Oh, I'm now seeing it more deeply than I did before. I've awakened to a different level of perception, which, from that level of perception, all creation is going to appear to have changed. It didn't. Reality doesn't change ever. Our perception of it changes constantly though. So then there's this feeling there's the feeling of I. Now you can just witness it, right? Now, at first, because it's so ingrained in us, we're not going to be able to stop, right? So it becomes a matter of, okay, as I'm doing, I can ask myself, well, doing is happening, right? And there's a necessity for this to be done, right? If I'm doing a job, I got to do the job. If I'm going to go on a trip, I've got to make the plans. I got to make hotel reservations or Airbnb or the plane reservations and set up transportation and all of that. That all needs to be done. So we can just step back and go, well, this is all happening. Is there anyone doing it? It's very closely related to the question of free will, right? Well, who's actually doing this? Is there anybody actually doing this, or is this just this flow that's taking place that I'm witnessing? And you can see how subtle the sense of I is in that. And so that place of the sense of I is where you put the attention. You don't have to stop what you're doing. You don't have to do anything differently, except, it is really good to just kind of give yourself pauses at times during the day to just kind of come back to here. I made a whole series of, I call them mini meditations that were like 2.5 to 4 minutes long that you could just like put on and just be there to just try to pull you out of that moment. For just a few moments, right? To give yourself something, and actually that it's helpful, right? Because sometimes it's hard for us to do it. The momentum is so strong that sometimes it's hard for us to even take a breath, right? And so to consciously put something else on and somebody's guiding you there, it actually is a little bit easier to let yourself experience that moment. So let's see. Did I answer this thing completely? And that sense of, if it doesn't get done, nothing's going to ever change, is whenever anything comes up, especially within the limited sense of self, it's always the carrot and the stick. Oh, look at the great reward. Oh, if you don't do it, this is going to happen. Powerful motivation, isn't it? I mean, there's the fear of negative consequences and this promise, of the shiny object. It's what motivates human beings until we become more conscious. And then we see how it works, and it doesn't mean it stops. It just means now that we're not as entangled in it. My sense of I isn't so wrapped up in it. My sense of well-being isn't dependent upon it any longer. And as that matures, that threat will seem less threatening. In fact, you can even tap on that, right? Is it really a threat? Okay, I'm threatened. I'm going to lose absolutely everything. You can play with it like that, and you'll find it'll lose a lot of its sting. The more you bring it up to the surface to look at it, the less authority and power it has. These things gain their, they're only potent when they're in the dark. They're all paper tigers. They're all shadows. And what happens when you turn on the light? The shadow disappears. It's gone. It's an outline of the real thing, but it's not the real thing. So I had the time and I talked about it. Is that good, Karina? Is that enough for you? Beautiful. 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 Through the presence or consciousness, this is Jay, through the presence or consciousness we talk about is the most solid, though is the most solid and concrete truth can get. I'm shocked when some of these new gen questions about it's about their own existence. If it's from the standpoint of individuality, good for questioning that existence. But if it's another thought to be entertained, oh goodness. Yeah, we have to be so. This takes guidance and teaching. I'm sorry. I wish, I mean, walking the spiritual path is, I said in the last thought song, and then I released it as a separate video. It's this balance, and I was doing it in terms of relationships, but it's always a balance when we're walking this spiritual path. We can become too dependent on a teacher, or we become avoidant of teachers, right? And they're all extremes. It's got to be this flow. Sometimes we absolutely need to have somebody to guide us through this stuff because we hit a wall, right? And other times we have to let that go and really do it ourselves for a bit, so that the teacher doesn't become a crutch. They become an asset, a resource, right? Which is what they're supposed to be, right? So I see a lot of confusion and immaturity and potholes in a lot of the questions that have come up these days about spirituality, the different explanations of it, the different versions of non-duality and other kinds of, all sorts of different things that are coming up. I have a lot of concerns about it. I see a lot of dangers in it, right? But at the same time, I'm also very happy about it because this is what has to happen. It's just an immature thing that will mature over time. There was a time when this stuff wasn't talked about at all. I didn't hear any of this. That's why my own awakening in 71 was totally confusing. I really didn't understand what had happened. I thought I did for a while, but then little by little, I realized how I didn't. And there was nothing around. 1971, Course in Miracles hadn't been thought of yet. Nobody knew who Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dyer was. That whole thing was a decade away. And it's, so what do you do? Right? But now I'm looking at it and it's exploding and it's becoming mainstream. And you can also see the fundamentalist or evangelical reaction to that. Church attendance is going down, although evangelicals is actually going up. And you can see that over time, they've become more and more militant and aggressive, as have Jehovah's Witnesses and the like. So you can see that level of freedom is a direct threat to the old hierarchy of power. And that's what it's about. It's about power. It's, these religions bear no resemblance to the teachings of Christ. And I don't mean the teachings of Paul, by the way. I mean the teachings of Christ. The modern church is based more on Paul, but I don't want to get into all of that. So, like anything, it's a two-edged sword. But I have so much confidence in the nature of truth because truth always wins, right? How can it not? You can't do anything to it. It's the truth. You can't negate it. You can't make it go away. You can't kill it. You can obscure it. You can lie about it. You can pretend you have it, but you can't actually make it go away. So ultimately, who's going to win in Armageddon, right? It's obvious who's going to win, right? Truth is going to win. And when you recognize that truth is love, wow, I'm very confident about the outcome. Even though the world is on the precipice, it has to be. The only way this is going to happen is that we're pushed so far to the edge that we give up this arrogant, delusional idea that somehow we, the I, that false sense of self, can do it. It can't. And that's what we all have to come to. Humanity as a whole is running out of moves. But just notice how much genuine spiritual teaching is making it out there. I wish there were more, but, I just keep doing what I'm doing. Thanks, Jay. Ben, along the lines you're talking about the Jehovah's Witness, can you expand on boundaries and non-duality? How can we set boundaries that are coming from self-honoring versus protecting our fears? Well, boundaries are set by wisdom. Damn, it's starting to get cold. See, it's your fault. You guys keep me talking so much. Boundaries are set by wisdom. The nature of the heart is completely open, absolutely open. Lets in anything, right? And in the beginning, in awakening, there's this tendency of wanting, so I just need to be opening my heart to absolutely everyone. Well, ultimately, yes. In the beginning, no. Navigating the territory of Earth, of the world, is different. And you can see that in this circumstance, our earthly experience as awakening beings walking this path, that what becomes clear in this world is what's love and what's wisdom. Even though they have the same essence and they're a flow between them, and the goddess of wisdom and the goddess of love, of compassion, are the same goddess. It is the flow of heart and mind, of just open-hearted loving and discerning, the discerning capacity, the two-edged sword of truth. They dance together. And so non-duality reveals both sides of it. It can get lopsided, right? You can get on the side that, I'm just going to love everybody, or you can get very cold. You can see non-dual teachers that are very cold. There's no open-hearted loving at all. It's just doing this real precision. And you can see how it's off balance. But the heart energy is not capable of setting boundaries. There are no boundaries to it. Everything is welcome. Everything is love. And at a certain point, or you could call it a level of awakening, like a Buddha, there's no need for any of that. But what you see in someone like the Buddha is this complete open-heartedness to anything, and yet this incredibly deep wisdom that always knew the right thing to say to whoever it was that came to him. Or the story of Christ and the woman taken in adultery, right? Who was brought to him, to trick him into saying something against the law, because they knew he wanted to let her go, which would have broken the law, and they would have gotten to stone him too. But their job was to stone her to death. Interesting, because the woman, in order to be taken in adultery, there had to have been a man there too. Funny he wasn't taken. Patriarchal. There you go. Clear example. But anyway, he throws him down in front of him, and he's on the right. Start drawing something in the dirt, going, Jesus, not this again. I can just hear him, and what would be in the moment? Now, the open-hearted love was, let her go, find her innocent, Let's just love her. Boom, boom, boom. She would have been pummeled with stones himself because it broke the law. There was a wisdom required. And so he says, okay, fine. Whoever among you is without sin, you throw the first stone. Now, no self-respecting Jew was going to be able to pick up a stone and say, I'm without sin. Simply not going to be able to do that. And so what do? Right? The act of throwing the stone would have been them making that statement, which they couldn't do. And so away they walked. Wisdom met love. Right? The open-heartedness would have just wanted to accept it all and accept them for doing that. And, don't we just hold hands and sing Kumbaya? But that was not what the moment needed. It needed the wisdom. And the wisdom set the boundary. The wisdom brought the love home. So the love was made manifest. And she got a huge lesson out of it. Right? There's nothing about her after that. We have no idea. But something obviously touched it. It was a beautiful story because he says to her, woman, where's your accusers? He says, they've all gone. He says, I don't accuse you either. Go. Sin no more. That's got deep significance. I mean, how many of us have our own inner accuser in us? Right? That which is throwing stones at us constantly in our own minds. The self-judgment, the self-criticism, the self-hatred. That I need to fix myself. I need to be better. Oh, if only I could. If only I could. Where are your accusers? They've all gone, Lord. That's the moment. Something, so beautifully deep there. So this is an art, Ben. We're going to try to set a boundary that we've never set before. And we're going to find people in our lives that are not going to like that boundary because they were very comfortable intruding because they were getting something. And all of a sudden you push that boundary off a bit for them, right? There can be some reaction and some pushback, which could actually feel like, oh, did I make the wrong mistake? Am I not being loving? This brings to the surface all the places where we have assumptions about stuff. You're allowed to set your boundaries anywhere you want. And the guiding principle is, where do I really feel comfortable? Oh, I don't feel comfortable setting a boundary here. Well, why not? I don't like it when they do this. I need to set a boundary. Why am I uncomfortable doing it? Oh, there's an assumption here. There's a belief here that I'm supposed to be this open-hearted being. As I like to say to people, sharks are beautiful. They're incredible. I mean, the perfect predator. They're just, they're awe-inspiring. Don't go swimming with them. Watch them from afar. Because they're not going to change their nature on your behalf. I like a nice boundary between me and a shark. I don't like aquariums because I don't like anything contained, but I love watching them on screen with people who know how to work with them or are in their cages and the like. So this is the practice of wisdom. It's the only way I can refer to it. It's a practice, and you're going to make mistakes, right? And you're going to make boundaries. But the most important thing is that when you bring a boundary closer, it should only be to something or someone or some circumstance that has earned your trust. Right? So non-duality is not just infinite heart opening. It's this incredibly precise and subtle wisdom, right, that recognizes both. I want to open my heart to absolutely everything. It's not safe to. I'd love to swim with the sharks. It's not safe to. They will not become vegans on my behalf. They won't do it. I'll just look like lunch, right? They won't be sitting here for satsang. So this is what we cultivate. And it is because we've all been, conditioned in various kinds of ways, we're not really going to know where all those boundaries are. we have to, well, what feels most comfortable in this moment? And again, don't turn this into a quest, this big thing you have to do, right? Just make it into something that is right now in this moment. That's all, right? We don't have to, how do I set boundaries as a general purpose thing? It's a question right now. In this moment, what's the most comfortable thing for me to do? What's the most loving? What feels right, right? And then looking at the feeling, am I just being afraid of this? And maybe it's okay to let it in? Well, then maybe can I let a little in and let's see, right? Remember, there can't be some kind of mental checklist like the 10 commandments of what I should or should not do. It must become something in your heart that you begin to recognize. That's where wisdom comes from, right? This everyday interaction where, where we get the wound, right? And recognize the cause of the wound, right? And thus make the appropriate adjustments that are based on actual direct experience and not something theoretical. The non-dual teachings are to point you in the direction where wisdom is discovered and embodied. It is not an outline of what wisdom is. Does that help, Ben? Very good. Very good. Jennifer says, is laughing. Thank you. You're welcome. It's just another thought. Yes, enter with curiosity. Great. Isn't it interesting, though, Jennifer, that something like that pops up and grabs us, commenting about the witnessing, and we don't immediately recognize it as just another thought. Isn't that amazing? It's like, wow. Oh, and until somebody points it out and you go, yeah, of course it is. What else would it be? And then it's something like, oh, that was easy. Fantastic. And of course, the more you do that, the more you'll be able to help others do that. It's a very natural thing. Corrine, I love that. Yes, when I first saw the awareness, I thought of the movie John Malkovich as well. Makes sense. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Robbie, thank you, GP. Being firm and simply walk away from JW seems like the only option. I feel hopeless to try to come up with my own beliefs than those being shrugged off in endless debate. Yeah, don't bother. They have no interest in what you have to say. They say, we want to talk to you about God. No, you don't. You want to tell me about God, tell me all the ways I'm wrong and make me believe what you believe. You have no interest in talking about it. If you know that in advance, there is no conversation. They will not listen to you. There's nothing you can possibly say. So just go with God, Love you. Have a nice day. Dave and Elaine, AG and everyone, love and greetings. Arriving late. So we get detention? Absolutely. Yeah, into the penalty box. Jill, I've gotten to the core layer of self-protection that I must have created as a very young child. It's like a thick, domed shell of metal, and it does not want to let go. I'd love to get some advice. Yes. It doesn't want to let go, right? Good. Now, I want you to give that so much love that it can't help but let go. What is the dome protecting it from? There's only one thing that dissolves those kinds of very deep, very early traumatic events and past life traumas as well, and that's love. Recognize that behind that thick dome shell of metal is a very wounded, very terrified little girl. That's all. And you just want to reach through that and reach her. Right? It's not about taking down. Right? From one point of view, it looks like we've got to dismantle this wall. The very act of wanting to dismantle the wall makes it stronger because it makes the one on the other side of the wall feel even more threatened. I can't bring this down. I will be killed. I will lose everything. I will be completely humiliated. I will be destroyed. Right? It'll be worse than death. Right? That's the expectation. So even our intent to fix ourselves, to correct things, to decorate the wall, right, all have exactly the opposite effect. So let go of trying to bring it down, and instead, just kind of sit down by the wall and talk to the little one on the other side. Just tell her how much you love her. Recognize how hurt she was, how ignored she was, how belittled she was, and that you're never going to do that. And you are the loving, aware witness of it all. And she can keep that dome up as long as she wants, and you don't care. Nothing you can do will stop you from loving her. Nothing she can do. And just be with that. And let your own love for that, which is love for yourself, increase until the wall disappears, because there was never a real wall there in the first place. Keep bringing her into your heart. There's no wall that separates her from your heart. Does that help, Jill? I know it does. I know you. You get it quick. Yes, says Corrine. Yes, thank you. Karen. Hello, Karen. Good to see you. Jeffers. Hello, G from the UK. Feeling privileged to join you all. Oh, wonderful to have you. Kiran. Very good. Good to see you. Yes, helps very much. Says Ben. Wonderful. Jennifer. Yes, it was always there. Beautiful. Head blown. Mind blown. I love that. Sometimes it's really hard to see the emojis that come through. David, what does the dome protect you from? Me? I'm the one that abuses me now. Yes. Well, if you look at it really closely, you find that the one doing the abusing and the one who is being abused are in fact the same one. And that I that's doing the abusing is the conditioning that has appeared, and that you in fact are the witnessing of the abuse, the abuser, and the abusing, the abused, the abused, the abusing, and the abuser. And you realize the entire thing is a self-contained, self-referential circle. And so you can ask that question, what is this protecting me from? Right? And in some instances I would. In others, like with Jill, because I already know her, it's a slightly different message. Right? The wall is protecting who? You could also ask that. Who is the wall protecting? It's like here, I'm on the other side of the wall. Who's over there that's being protected? And who's over here that feels disconnected from that? What is this disconnection made of? There's all sorts of different ways to approach it, but really come to see that the self-abuse, right, that is not really coming from you. There's no desire in you to abuse yourself. It's these recurring patterns. But because it comes up and we do something and you recognize, you go, oh, damn, I did it again. In the I did it again, there's a subtle identification with it rather than, oh, there it is again. There is that accusing voice again. There it is. The accusing voice arose. There's the prideful voice. There's the fearful voice. Also good to say mind. There's the accusing mind again. There's the fearing mind. There's the angry mind. There's the bitter mind. And notice doing that, there's a distance there. You're witnessing it happen, because it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening. Right? But the more we can disidentify with it, and even though it uses first person, right? I'm abusing myself. That first person is self-referential. It's not actually you. It's the mind's version of a self. It is the thought I. It is not actually a true I. The real I identifies with the thought I, and now it seems to stick. Now it seems like I am abusing. No, you're not. No child abuses themselves. Nope. Every child just loves themselves to death. They're so natural and so free about it. But they learn to do that. And the self-criticism, the self-abuse, basically, is simply implementing the abuse that they got early on, right? Inflicting on themselves for the very same reason. They're afraid of what might get out, and therefore they get hurt. But it's not really you. This is how the nervous system conditioned itself in the way best suited to meet the circumstances and the particular circumstances in which you grew up. So disidentify with the accusing voice and just saying, there's the accusing mind. There's the abusing mind. And then go, well, who's really being protected here? What is all of this not wanting me to get to? Something in there is very innocent, very pure, that really needs protecting, right? That didn't get it before. And so, boom, the whole energy of life that we call the nervous system stepped in and says, I'll take it. I'll do it. This is precious. I'm going to protect it at all costs, no matter what I have to give up. It's really quite a beautiful thing to understand what's happening and then recognize that what it's protecting is the original innocence that is really, really you. That's the real you. It appears to be there. It's actually here. That's the sense of alienation that we got. It appears as though I'm separated from my true self, but I can't be anything other than my true self. And that's the initial schism. That's the original trauma. I can't be what I am. So I become something else, but I can't not be what I am. So what's on the other side of the dome is actually right here. And the dome is in the mind. Faith. Hello, Faith. Hi, my sheik and everyone. Please tell me about surrender, how to do things where things are happening by their own. I trust life now, how to hear it in my heart. I trust that things will go well, but I don't feel the energy to make action, to apply for jobs, learn new things. Yes. Okay. In your case, because I do know you, right? So I can customize. Yeah, it's a little chilly in here. I got my blankie. In your case, what I'm going to, I see this expanding heart of yours, this opening, this trusting that is emerging in you with a greater confidence. That is the surrender. You're surrendering to your true nature, which is naturally loving and open. Now, as this happens, things go, how do I act? How do I do things? And one of the ways in which the conditioned self tries to kind of gum up the works is by draining energy and motivation, right? Because the false self is motivated by desire and fear. It's motivated by, I've got to get this, or I've got to get away from this, right? Those are the primary motivations of it. Now, there's nothing wrong with either desire or fear, but when they become the dominant thing within that sense of self, they run the show. Now, as you begin to transcend that in your awakening, and there's less that, the nervous system now, because that's been its primary motivation, get something or get away from something, it doesn't know how to motivate itself, because that's all it motivated before. So it says, now, I don't have the energy to make action. How do I do that unless I'm terrified or it's a shiny object that I have to reach for? Well, here's what I'm gonna have you to do. I'm gonna have you simply ignore the fact that there's no energy to do it. Use your in this case, use the mind in the right way and go, okay, this is what I need to do, and I'm going to organize my day to do that. and then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to let it go. Right? And then when the mind says, I don't have the energy to do it, yeah, I know, but I'm going to do it anyway, because this needs to be done, and thank you. But this is how we're going to operate right now. And if motivation comes, that's great. And if it's not, that's great. But I'm not going to let this stop me from living life the way I know how to do it. Because if it stops you, it can get more powerful, can't it? But if you say, yeah, there's no motivation there, there's no energy, it's hard to do, I get distracted, I want to procrastinate, but I'm going to do it anyway. Maybe to find friends, somebody who can support you, so you can accountability, or anybody. Get in touch with Lisa or myself and just say, I did this today, I did this today, I did this today. So Lisa's a good one for that. She'll help out with that, as I will, to the degree that I can. Right? We both have limited amount of times, but we do. And then just do it. Just do it because you know it needs to be done, so that even when there's not emotional content yet there, wisdom is still operating, and you're taking the side of wisdom. This is very powerful, right? Because as you do that, the energy will begin to see two things. Number one, you're resolute. It's not going to be able to stop you, which is what it's trying to do right now, which means it's going to start, it's going to recognize then that you're serious, and it's going to have to conform itself to you and not the other way around. It's going to start relinquishing power to you. The other thing it's going to see is that you're doing these things, and no horrible things are resulting the way it would have at one time. It's going to get some evidence that its expectations that it's trying to shut down from aren't necessarily true, that they're just assumptions. And this all brings about an inner alchemy. The inner environment is beginning to metamorphosize into something much more loving and open and wise. So you're operating, you're doing what you need to do, and you're doing it even though the motivations you had in the past are no longer operative. But new motivations will then begin to arise as the nervous system begins to readjust itself and reorganize itself around this very different place, this place of wisdom, this place of a kind and loving yet resolute wisdom, which you're stepping into, Faith. I know, because I've watched you do it, which is my great pleasure. How's that, love? Ava, about this love to the wall concerning Jill, I get you, and I get it. Still, I'm not able to give it this unconditional love. And I really want to embrace it with such love. I feel so lost. Okay, so feel lost, that's okay. Just stay with the desire, that intention to do it. See, we feel like, I really want to give it love. I can't. I don't know how. And we think, I've lost. I've failed. Well, of course you don't know how. Just say, oh, I don't know how. There it is. I don't know how. Does that affect the fact that you want to? Absolutely not. The love is driving the desire. It's driving the attention. Just spend time with the intention to do so, and let the intention find the way. You don't have to know how. You don't have to be successful at doing it. But when the desire to love more arises, especially towards ourselves, the resistance will arise. The wall can seem like it's solid as hell. The truth is, there is no wall. It never existed. It's completely a construct of the mind. It's not, and I know you understand that, right? But it is only love that will break that wall down. So you focus on the intention. The intention may be all there is available to you of the love at the time. So, a lot of times with tapping, I will just do nothing but just the intention of it. Yes, I I'm just going to let myself want to do that, want to love this. I don't know how. Yep, I don't know how. Total truth. Right in the moment, that is the truth. And just go, okay, I don't know how. I'd like to know how, but it doesn't change my intention. This is loving in an even deeper way, because it's really recognizing our vulnerability. It's recognizing our innocence. It's it's a surrender to love. It's a prayer to love. It's a chant to Shiva, right? To open me to this. Show me how to do this. Break open this shell that appears to be a wall, but it's just something that feels like it's restricting my capacity to love. So just reveal what needs to be revealed, and show me the way. It's a very humble prayer. Lord, replace me with you. It's a very humble approach to it. And this is part of the sentiment that for me is requisite in non-dual spirituality and is often missing. The sentiment of prayer, of surrender, of total submission. That's saying, I don't know how to do this. Right? I have run out of moves. Yet there is this deep intention within me. There's this deep desire to love on a level I've never loved before, but in a way that's absolutely wise and effectual. It isn't a weak. I can feel and see all of that, right? And that will help you to rely so much less on yourself trying to embrace it, trying to become more lovable. That I will never accomplish it. That I disappears, and the true I emerges, which effortlessly accomplishes it. How's that, Ava? Happy Father's Day, GP, from Brett. Thank you, Brett. And thanks to all. Thanks for your wisdom. Thanks to you all. Thanks to all the dads. Oh, just another little message for dads. I said earlier that if you're doing a really good job, you'll never know it. When I look back, I was just so young and stupid. I mean, I knew nothing. You know, it was a time I was very dysfunctional in my life, and yet I'd had this enormous awakening. It was just this. It was just almost an inner chaos, talking to God on one side and just total incompetence on the other. The total, just I was just mentally unstable. I was emotionally unstable. I'd been severely abused my whole life, and so this thing comes out of nowhere. And at that young age, 3 years after I'd had that experience, the awakening experience, I was married and I had a son. And I look back now, and you can bring me tears to things I wish I would have known then. And they both turned out great. We all have great relationships. When we get together, it's just incredibly fun. They're both quite witty. They're sharp, can be very sharp-tongued, and also very smart. So there's a lot of ribbing that goes back and forth through the generations. But also I can see the areas in which, that just they break my heart. But I know it's always going to be like that. No parent's going to be able to do a perfect job. That is, raise the child that's free from conditioning. You can't, because it's part of the program. Everybody has to fall out of that grace in one way or another. What we want to do is make it so that when they do, the distance between them and the separate sense of self and the true self, it doesn't have as many obstacles in it. There can be an underlying sense of self-love and self-respect and self-validation, that that there's an emotional capacity to easily work through it, and that's the best we can do. It's not a job you're supposed to succeed at. It's only one you're supposed to survive through. That's it. It's like a promotion in martial arts. You're not supposed to win. You're supposed to survive. That's it. If you survive, you're promoted. Ah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's see. Serenable. I get 3 green hearts. Yay. Thank you. Yes, G says, Kelly, thank you for that. It brought healing tears. Wonderful. Faith, great. Thanks for this answer. It was just an insight, and I felt some openness listening to it. Show up every day, learn something, apply positions out of... Yes, that's it. You know, the artist cannot guarantee that masterpiece is going to happen. Nobody can. Right? Dali, Picasso, Rembrandt, Monet, none of them could guarantee, do anything they could. They'd do anything they could if they could, but they couldn't. Nobody can guarantee that masterpiece is going to show up. It's going to happen. So what do? You show up. You show up every day at the canvas with your paints, because that's the only time it is going to show up, and that's what you do, day in and day out. Right? The days you don't want to, the days you have no motivation, you do it anyway. Right? This is what we do. And that's the opportunity. It's in meditation, you show up every day to the meditation. You don't know what's going to happen. It could be a moment, it could be a time of bliss, it could be a time of utter grief. We don't know, but we keep showing up every day. And someday that door opens and never closes. Yes, there is intention. Thank you, G. Thank you, Ava. Yes, it's all it takes, folks. Faith, is that what I know right now? Thanks, my sheik. Yes, you were in with them through this way, in with me, and I am surprised seeing that change in me. And after all and before all, I will pray to be that love and wisdom. Ah, so beautiful. Ben, great questions today. I feel like everybody is voicing things I couldn't put to words to. Thanks, everybody. Yes, Ben, that is the great need of a Sangha. That is why we need each other. So oftentimes, a lot of these things are just rumbling under the surface. We think we're the only ones they're rumbling under the surface on. And then suddenly somebody manages to articulate it and you go, oh, yes, yes. We are all in it together. We are all in this together. The 3 treasures of Buddhism are the Buddha, which is the Dharma, which is the pure truth, the Dharmakaya, the body of truth, which is the true body of a Buddha. The Buddha is the manifest truth, truth known, lived, flesh and blood, walking in the world. And the 3rd treasure of Buddhism is the Sangha, us, the group, the people, the sincere seekers. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh. In Buddhism, there's, the Shakyamuni Buddha was only one of a long lineage of Buddhas, right? Every 2,500 years, according to the story, which corresponds with the yugas and all that, sort of thing, or at least the last 2 yugas. The next one is called Maitreya Buddha. Maitreya Buddha meaning the Buddha of love. And Thich Nhat Hanh pointed out that the appearance of a Buddha in the world does not have to be a single person. It might be a group of people. It might be all of us. Imagine a mass awakening. The Buddha manifest as many at once. Not just a Buddha, but the Buddha mind permeating through humanity. I kind of like that version. I'm with that one. Freedom is the most important. Yes. Freedom to know who you are. Yes. Happy Father's Day. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. My Sheikh, what do you think about this? I will do what I do out of love and wisdom, not necessarily for the job itself, but for my journey of seeking truth, love, and wisdom. Job is bad. Freedom is the most important. And the job and the freedom can become one. So it's a wonderful mantra. It's a wonderful prayer. Right? May all beings everywhere know happiness, be without suffering, be abundant and prosperous, full of love, loving kindness, and free. I will do what I do out of love and wisdom, not just for the job itself, but for my own love of and seeking of the deepest truth, the deepest embodiment I can be, for all freedom reflected in this job. That's a beautiful prayer. It's a mantra. I write it down and repeat it, memorize it, commit it to memory. It is, and then just add in there, and I wish this for all beings everywhere. Just add that as a little line to the bottom, right? And in that moment, you're a bodhisattva. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, Karina, thank you. Thank you for all the beautiful wisdom you have shared. Oh, it's such a pleasure. And just remember, wisdom isn't a personal possession. It is not my wisdom. Wisdom doesn't have a my. Wisdom appears anywhere where the door is open to allow it to appear. And our job is simply you could call it a purification of our minds and hearts to allow it to come through. Right? You know, the particular body, mind, the particular functioning that it comes through. You know, I can't say it comes from me. It doesn't. That is the me. That is the sense of person that's, you know, here and functioning and the like. Nor does it come to a person, right? Because there's no person there. There is only wisdom. Wisdom manifesting itself. Wisdom gave rise to the body, the mind, the room, the microphones, for it to have the vehicle to express itself through. Not through will or intention in that sense, but just because that's its nature. The nature of wisdom is to express itself. And how does it do that? Through the infinite forms that you see all around you, including you. In a sense, there is no Karina. Karina is a name given to, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful. Enjoy it. We can enjoy these bodies. They're a lot of fun. Yes, it's an illusion, but man, is it a nice one. Just recognizing, yeah, that's what it is. This is just the transient part that's forever changing. And there is within that this constant, unmoving, indescribable essence that I call myself. And that is not a discounting or a diminishing of the appearance and the form. It's an acknowledgement that in its essence, that form is that primordial wisdom, but it's not the source of it. It's the fountain. It's the appearance of it. And so that's all there is to it. That's the very substance of it. But the true I, the true self-aware beingness is the source. And you are that. Jennifer, thank you so much for today. You are Baba for such great reasons, and gratitude for sharing this beautiful Father's Day with you. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Rosalind, good vibes. Thank you, GP, for articulating so many concepts. They help me so much with gratitude and warm regard. Wonderful. I love doing this. I love my job. The Native Americano, could you please elaborate on the concept of trust, absence of confidence? Yes, I could. Well, you're new, it seems. I don't remember seeing that name before. So I'll have to speak more generally because I don't know you in particular. The concept of trust, you know, in all of our human experience, trust and distrust are the result of experience. Right? Children are born trusting. Right? They have to be. Right? When we come into the world, we have to trust. Right? We have no other choice. We are completely and totally vulnerable. We trust without having any concept of trust, any idea of what trust is. But the aches and pains and wounds and traumas and stuff that occur at varying degrees of severity, they betray that trust. We come to realize we can't trust, when that happens, sometimes very it could be a one incident in which that happens. It was for me. I remember vividly the day when my universe changed. As a little kid, I was around 2 years old, maybe a little less, and the trust was gone. Right? For others, it's more gradual. Right? Nobody can get through childhood without some of it being crippled in some way. But oftentimes, good parenting will make someone develop a level of self-trust, that you can trust your own insight. You trust your own view of things. You trust your own perceptions, but with an openness that allows you to question them as well. They don't become a dogmatic belief system. So to cultivate trust, to the degree you self-assess your trust, right? If somebody's really trusting of their own perceptions, and they're humble, they're not imposing it on anybody. They listen, right? And nor can they be imposed on. They can't be gaslit. When you have trust in yourself through direct experience. Right? Now, all of us have more or less of that. It's also usually quite compartmentalized. Some areas of your life you totally trust this is going to work. I feel very confident. I have confidence and trust. You mentioned that before. The absence of confidence, that they go hand in hand. The more I trust, the more confident I am, and because I trust it, I know it's there. Right? Then its trust is not really a faith thing; it's the result of. It's evident, I've experienced, so I know it's true, and so you take that in, and then now you look at the places where you're not so sure, right? And again, I was saying they were compartmentalized. So some part of us we can be confident, other parts not, completely without confidence. That was the case early on with me. I was so confident in the vision that I had, right? Just absolutely, but I had no confidence in the rest of my life. Trying to bring these two together it was a life's work, right? That took years to work through. So how do you then develop that trust? Well, first we have to become really aware of where we're not trusting. You have to become really aware of all the places where we're going, oh, look, I have no sense of certainty here whatsoever. I don't know what I'm doing. So I guess I shouldn't be trusting myself because I don't know what I'm doing. Now, this is where wisdom is cultivated. Because at times like that, we really need to have some guidance. We need a teacher. But oftentimes, we don't have the trust to know who to trust as a teacher. As someone who can kind of guide us through these processes, right? Guide us into practices and the like that can begin to get us back in touch with our true selves, which are always trusting. When you know yourself, you trust yourself because you know who you are. On the divine level, you know the perfection of your being. On a human level, you know the strengths and weaknesses of this particular form. And so you know what to do. You can trust in it. Oh, I know I'm weak there. I need help, right? And I'm never going to be strong there. So, there's going to be some foundations there, a company or a Sangha or a group or a tribe, something, so we can work together. And so that's cultivated. So how do I know where to get actually even answers for that? Well, we just have to walk softly. I can give you a few guidelines. Don't listen to anybody who tells you this is the way it has to be and you have to believe it. Don't, right? don't don't believe anybody or put your trust in anyone who diminishes you in any way, who tries to control you in any way, who makes you feel small, who makes you think you need them, right? That's not a true teacher. That's an emotional vampire. Stay away from them. It should be one whose only job is to help liberate you. They're only interested in your freedom. They want to set you free, nothing else. They're seeking nothing from you. They're not trying to get anything. Right? They mean a little help, buying their courses and things like that, because it's part of the deal. But they're not going to be trying to suck you dry. They're not going to be trying to make you attached to them in any way whatsoever. Always free to just come and go as you please. Bring up anything from anywhere. People like that you can trust. And little by little, even if just a little bit, always reserving, right? Does this feel right? Because ultimately, that self-trust comes from trusting our own intuition, which is what gets really hurt, especially in this culture, which wants to make, obedient citizens. I think it was Henry Ford. It said, I don't want educated people. I want workers. that was the he said that out loud. That's kind of the view of the elitist, that they want plebeians, and the whole education system, which he was had a big part in forming, was to do just that: create workers, not self-sufficient, self-aware, self-validating individuals. And so our whole education system is based on making you subservient and deferring to what have been deemed the appropriate authority. So it's pervasive. So how do we reclaim that territory? How do we reclaim the trust in the potential of our own intuition to discern what is actually true? Well, it takes time. It takes some patience. There's going to be some places in your life where you are confident. It's a great place to start. Oh, look, I do trust that. It's a great place is a pool to begin to grow, to take a step outside of that in areas that you're not so sure, but always being able to step back. Does this teaching or this teacher or this book or this course, what's it promising me? Right? Does it feel too good to me to be true? Does it have a resonance with it? Can I take a taste before I buy? And sometimes you'll buy things and get halfway in and go, this really isn't for me. It's not what I thought it is. Sometimes you get your money back. Sometimes you can't. It's just the way it is. But there's a necessity to give yourself the freedom to walk into the places where you're not sure. Because the only way you're going to develop the trust is through experience. So you start with what you do know, you become aware of what you don't, and then you walk into it very, very gently. And always remember that the foundation on which that kind of trust can be built is through self-knowledge. It first, for me anyway, the first step is to just let ourselves acknowledge and be present with our own feelings, good, bad, or indifferent. So starting on the road of self-acceptance. That starting from I'm not broken. That my life is not about just perpetual self-fixing. That it's about coming to know who I am. I'm not this broken thing that needs to be repaired, right? I'm something more than that I don't have access to because of a lot of stuff that happened, and a lot of programming and conditioning, a lot of shit that went down. And because of that, I don't have access to all of me. It's a very different approach than I'm broken and I have to be fixed and I need to make this better and I got to do better at this kind of thing. This isn't self-help. This is self-discovery. And so this is like coming to that place where you begin to discover a trust that you're more than you thought you were, that there is somebody in me already who is quite trustworthy and capable of trusting wisely. That's what we want to get to ultimately. And there's some interaction with the world and teachers and teachings and people and experiences that really embody that, right? But it starts with a willingness to begin the task of self-examination, self-inquiry, and opening our hearts to accepting ourselves as we are. And that to me is where it all comes. Eventually, if I come to accept myself, that door to the trusting wisdom opens all by itself. And you find that it's been there the whole time. It was just suppressed out of you. It was pushed away. You weren't allowed access to it. And we developed kind of these barriers and walls between us and that. But little they come down. And we discover that what's on the other side of that wall of conditioning is not this horrible being that needs to be kept away, but this incredibly beautiful being that had to be kept safe. And now you can provide the environment in which the real you can begin to emerge. And believe me, that you knows what to do all the time. It trusts itself completely. All right there. All righty then. David says, well, GP, that does away with organized religion. Indeed it does. Organized religion isn't really religion. You know, the word religion comes from the Latin religio, which means to bind. It's exactly the same as the word yoga in Sanskrit, which means to yoke. It's the same. You're binding, right? You know, you're going back to oneness, basically. That's what religion actually is. But then religion, being a powerful force, of course, it's commandeered by the culture and by power structures, and it's turned into an institution with rules mandating obedience for salvation and the like, and it ceases to be religion. So I wish I could give it another word, but we can't. That's the word, but that's not what it's about, right? So yes, once foop. We've wiped what's called religion, which is nothing but the emotional tyranny of a system of government to maintain the status of the elite and the underclass. That's what it is. That's my definition anyway. Groovin. Hey, Groovin, much gratitude. Thank you. Jeffers, apologies to you. I'm new here too, and to non-duality generally. However, I have a question regarding the concept of suffering. The past few years have been life-changing for me and volatile. I have a continuing feeling that the suffering should continue and worsen. Could this be ego-related, guilt, or both? Well, the natural state of the self, of the true self, is happiness. We experience it as happiness. Right? The natural state of the ego is suffering, misery. That's its natural state. Okay. So whenever you're talking about suffering, you're talking about egoic identification. is Buddha taught in the Four Noble Truths, which is one of the most precious and amazing teachings of all time, the most definitive teaching on suffering there is to get to know it, is to understand it. When suffering comes up, our first intention is, I want to get rid of it, right? Which pits us in this struggle against our suffering, pushing it away, and pushing it away, which never works. Simultaneously, what happens, trying to push away the suffering, we're grabbing for something that we think is going to bring us relief from the suffering, because our minds have been trained to look for an answer to suffering in the realm of the external, in the realm of form. The whole point of non-duality is it takes you out of that and says the answer does not lie in the external world at all. It lies in here. And suffering is not what it appears to be. So the Four Noble Truths of Buddha are a very easy process to follow, right? The first is, there is suffering. Now, on the surface, go, yeah, what? But if you look at it more closely, you go, he's trying to point our attention to something. You go, you know what? There's suffering. This is human nature. This is the nature of the egoic mind. Suffering is an inevitable part of human life. It cannot be avoided or gotten rid of. It can be transcended. And because right after he says there is suffering, he says there is a cause to suffering. It isn't self-sustained. Suffering isn't just something that's coming and it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. It's not self-sustained. It's not an entity. It has a cause. And if you know what the cause is, you get to the third noble truth. It has an end. Everything that has a beginning, it has an end. If we know the cause, we know why suffering is happening. If we don't know the cause, we seek all sorts of remedies for suffering where there aren't any, because we're actually embodying the cause ourselves ignorantly without knowing it. Ignorance plays a huge part in it. So what's the actual cause of suffering? Now, this is interesting because to get to that takes a little bit of training. It takes a little bit of practice, because the urge to run away from suffering or to create some kind of temporary relief for suffering is so strong that it's reflex. It happens automatically. So that, going back to the first noble truth, there is suffering. It becomes a way that can actually be taken into a practice. So let's see here. I have a continuing feeling that suffering should continue and worsen. Right. Now that's a thought about suffering, isn't it? Right? That's after the fact. All thoughts about anything happen after the thing has already happened. So we can ignore the thoughts about them and go directly to the thing. As in Buddha's case, he said, there is suffering. Now, instead of general terms, just think I'm sitting here and going, this comes up. I can go, oh, I'm suffering, or I can go, there is suffering. There it is. First noble truth. This is important. Thank you, Buddha. I get it. This is really important. There's suffering. Suffering is appearing in my human consciousness. It has to. This is the way it works here. This is part of human birth. Got it. There is suffering. In this moment now, my focus is no longer on remedies and all this stuff, but it's on the actual experience of suffering itself. What is that? It's discontent. It's a fear. I got to get away from this. Things aren't working, right? You can begin to see what makes it up. Right? Then you can start going into, where does this come from? Why do I feel discontent? Why am I afraid? Why do I feel shut down and I can't love? Why do my relationships suck that are causing me that are making this suffering appear? What's the cause of that? The real cause, right? Not what appears superficial, but what's the real cause here? Now, the only way to find that is to spend time with those feelings without going into our explanations of it, spiritual or otherwise. Now, the cause of suffering to the Buddha was ignorance of who you are. Ignorance of who you are manifests as what? The ego, the sense of self that is suffering. Can't be suffering without a sufferer, right? Which means that in subtle ways, you are identifying with the sufferer. And that is the cause of suffering, not circumstances, but identification with the sufferer. Oh, so so if I can disidentify with the suffering, there's no sufferer, there can be no suffering. Got it. There's an end to suffering. It's finite, doesn't go on forever. Yay. Then you come to the fourth noble truth is there is a means to that end, the eightfold noble path. And it's a beautiful thing to ponder. It's not like this regimen you have to go through. It's not like take step 1 and step 2. There's like the first is right views. And they're called noble truths, which means fundamental, lofty, high, transcendent, significant. Okay? This is deep truth. All right, there's a path out of suffering. Now notice, this is not the Buddha yet talking like in the Diamond Sutra or the Lokamvatara Sutra, pure non-duality, where there is no suffer, there never has been, there never will be, nothing exists. All of the stuff that you hear a lot today, he's much more earthy. He's like right down to the heart of the issue, because that's what drove him into seeking, to leave everything behind, was to find the answer to suffering, which he did, and he shares with us. The first one, right views. How to see yourself correctly is the first step in the path out of suffering, to getting to the cause. If I see myself as I actually am, the sufferer ceases to exist, and with it, the suffering. So how do I do that? Well, there's the other steps in the path. There's right mindfulness, there's right meditation, there's right concentration, there's right livelihood, our interaction with the world. Right livelihood is important. If I'm making weapons all day long, I'm not going to be able to get very far sitting at home at night meditating. If I'm out, robbing people, as a person or as a corporation, my meditation is not going to get very far. There's this right relationship with things in the Eightfold Path. And again, don't turn it into a dogma. You can read about it with Thich Nhat Hanh. There's a variety of different places you can go. Don't try to dive into it as a theology or something like that. Just like right views. So how do I come to see myself as Buddha saw himself? Deep question, but it has to start. Right? We can't let this be too heady. It starts through the direct experience of the genuine, honest acknowledgement there is suffering. Right? My sense is I am suffering. Right? It's very intimate. This is not suffering I'm witnessing over there. It's right here. Right? I get to the root of it. There's a discontent. And now I'm going to be with this discontent, with the desire to follow it all the way to its source, because it has a cause. Right? So I want you'll always hear me working with people. If somebody works with me individually or in a group, it's always coming back to this place. It's always coming back to this. All right, be with the discontent. Let's see where it goes. No solution to it. I'm embracing the discontent. If not embracing it, I'm at least accepting it. If not accepting, I'm at least acknowledging that it's here, right? Which is the first noble truth. There is discontent. Right? There is self-judgment. There is self-sabotage. There is loneliness. Whatever it happens to be, there it is. And you'll notice how our habit is to immediately look for a solution to it, but that solution is always on the outside. Nobody, except a few of us, will say, don't look there, keep looking at it. It's not there. The answer isn't there. That's like looking trying to fix the mirror in order to look better. You don't bother with that. It's the mirror. Look here. Keep looking at it. Look at the discontented self. That's where you're going to find where its source is. And that's my little exposition on my mini exposition on the Four Noble Truths: self-acceptance, inner reconciliation, and a variety of other things as well. Does that work for you? Where did it go? No need to apologize, Jeffers. That's what I'm here for. So thank you for that beautiful question. I really hope that helped. Native Americano from Four-Legged Beings seem to be the best teachers. I appreciate your understanding. Thanks. You're very welcome. They are. As Eckhart Tolle said, I've lived with with many Zen masters in my life, all of them cats. If there's so much there because they are so in tune. Right? There's only one thing we have that they don't, and that is this capacity for self-examination. That's it. In many ways, they're all superior to us. When you really look at us, if I'm fighting a lion on a lion's turf, I once heard. Who was it that said this? I can't remember it now. He said that for human beings, we're like dogs chasing a stick. Every time they throw it, we go chase it. He says, be like the lion and turn towards the one throwing the stick, because nobody throws a stick at a lion twice. Who's throwing the sticks? The four-leggeds are indeed our teachers, as are the trees, the two-leggeds with wings, the six-leggeds, the eight-leggeds. They are all our teachers. Ralph, grateful for the questions and answers today. Always helpful. Thank you, Ralph. Jennifer, 99% of our suffering is caused by our own thoughts and reliving in the past unknown loops of thoughts and feelings of those thoughts, yet no association with the I, unfolds like a petal. And then you're looking out like John Malkovich. Yes. Yes, says the Native Americana. Thank you. Oh, with a whole little line of beings. Yes. Andy, all-star satsang today. Heaps of gratitude to questioners, commenters, and all witnesses. And David and Elaine say thank you, and Ava, thank you. Wonderful. I went over a bit today. I couldn't let it go. Thank you all for your penetrating questions. Please like and share. If you can, visit the site. I'm doing more about, I'm trying to move the GP Walsh site, make it smaller and really just about me and specifically some teaching. And all the rest of the stuff, I'm moving over to Om School, because I really want to make it about more about our spiritual education and growth, and very human levels. We're adding some really human stuff to it, some really practical, helpful stuff about relationships, nutrition and health, and the stuff that's really pressing on a lot of people today. So I'm trying to make the increase on that, and please, those of you, visit my Patreon account if this is helpful, because all of this comes out of my pocket, and I am not a rich man. So any help, and those who have, I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It makes more difference than you could possibly realize. So thank you all, my loves. Thank you for being here. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Love to you all. Namaste.